Kirsten, welcome to Conscious Revolution podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to have you and to have this conversation going.
Me
Purpose is
too. Thank you.
purpose is something I think we all are kind of like obsessed with at this moment of of time. I think
Yeah.
for good or for bad we are.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, so I'm really excited to have you here, to have you enlighten us with your experience, with your take on human design and how it fits into finding and living and enjoying. I think those three are really different things. Our
Yes.
purpose.
100%. And I feel like, after we did your human design reading, I'm sure, as you know, from being a manifesting generator, enjoyment in what you do is paramount.
Yes.
So I'm glad to
Yes.
see that you are fully embodying and living all of that.
Absolutely. I think for me, human design in the past few months has really been such a big missing puzzle for my business, because somewhere
Mm,
not even recognizing I had disconnected from that joy, from that passion, which is the driving force for a manifesting generator.
yeah.
So those of you who do not know what are we talking about, what's up with manifesting generator and stuff, I will have Kirsten talk a little bit about human design to give us a little brief on what is human design, what are the 5 types, and how do they tie in for us to identify, to help us live our true design.
Yes, 100%. So I am still working on how to make this a short description because, as you know from your reading, it takes me usually about 20 to 30 minutes to describe each energy type. So I'm still working on my elevator pitch
maybe
for
we
this
can
part.
maybe we
Yeah.
can go on and break down each type further in the podcast, and for the time being maybe we can just list out the types, energy types that we
Yes.
have,
Yeah.
and just what is it.
So essentially, human design is a combination between astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, the chakra system, and quantum physics. So there's a little analogy that I like to use to explain what human design is. And there's a movie on the Disney Channel, Disney Network called Soul. And it's a movie about incarnation and the afterlife. And there is a part in the movie where all the little baby souls are standing over a hole cut out over the top of Earth and they're ready to jump down and incarnate in the body that they're going to inhabit in this lifetime. And before they jump down, they get their Earth badge, and their Earth badge has their spark, so what they're going to contribute, their personality, their gifts. It has everything already mapped into this little Earth badge, and they stick it on their front so that when they jump down into the body that they're going to navigate this life in, all of that is already mapped inside of them. So human design is essentially our Earth badge because it's the birth portal that we incarnated on. It's the birth date, time, and place. So as we were kind of jumping down that little birth portal, all of the unique energetics that we need in order to navigate this life, to get everything that we came here to get and contribute everything that we came to contribute, is already woven into us. So when people say that you already have everything you need inside of you, they're right because we already have all of these beautiful energetics encoded in us that literally give us the user manual to our soul, what our soul intended for us in this life, so that we can move through and navigate that. So yes, you're right. There are 5 energy types. There is the manifester, the generator, the manifesting generator, the projector, and the reflector. And a brief little summary of all of those is that the manifester is essentially here to initiate, and we have a closed and repelling aura. And the reason being is because if we are here to initiate and create and make things happen and get things started, we essentially want the path of least resistance. So we've got this closed and repelling aura to move things out of our way so that we can create things, create movement, momentum, get things off the ground. So we've got this big surging energy that gets things happening. And then almost like a rocket launch, we need periods of rest to recharge. So we work in ebbs and flows. So we're really here to get things started, and we work in surges and periods of rest. The generator and manifesting generator energy types essentially are like, the manifesting generator is a subclass of the generator. So you guys operate very similarly. And essentially what sets you apart from the rest of us is you both have a defined sacral center. And this sacral center is like life force energy. So it's the access to this big, beautiful like engine of a car that you can jump in and access this beautiful energy whenever you like. But what really drives and activates this sacral energy is joy and enjoyment. So for you to really have full access to this sacral center, yes, you can work. Yes, both of you, the generator, manifesting generator, can work because you've got access to this life force energy. You're actually really here to love what you do. And through this enjoyment of what you do, this sacral center becomes activated. The joy, the delight, the inspiration spills up into your body, and it spills out into your auric field, which is open and attracting. So you essentially pull life towards you from this joy state. Then we've got the projector, which has a deep and penetrating aura. And these beautiful humans are really incredible guides, leaders, visionaries, because they have the ability to essentially go into the other and really almost have a little taste of them. So they can see so clearly into what the other into whatever it is. So they're like the best people to go to for advice or perspective, because they can really truly see everything. It's almost like their little helicopter over the field. They can really see everything so clearly. And then we have our beautiful reflectors, who are completely open, and they have no energy centers defined, and they really have this beautiful ability to have this, they have got this resistant and sampling aura, and they're really here to kind of sample, delight, morph, change, evolve. They're really here to be in whatever their truth is in the current moment. And they're actually also here to reflect the health of the collective back to us. So we really get ourselves and the collective mirrored back to us through the generator. Through the reflector. So there are just so many beautiful differences between what we're all here to do. And each of those energies really has a strategy on how to use their energy. For the manifester, because we're here to initiate and get things started and get things off the ground, our strategy is to inform. So we're just kind of giving people a heads up. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. Get on board, get out of the way. It's happening. Just giving people an FYI so that we don't barrel you out of the way with our closed and repelling aura. For the generator, because you guys have this beautiful, open and attracting aura, your strategy to use that energy is to respond, because you're checking in with how your inner world is responding to what you're magnetizing towards you from being in your joy and delight. So is it expansive? Do you want to continue to lean into those expansive, more joy, more creation? Or does it feel contracting? Because if it feels contracting, it's probably something for you to move away from. So you're really here to be in the flow of life, be in the response of life, and really follow those little breadcrumbs of joy. For the projector, because they've got this amazing spotlight that they have this incredible capacity to really see, their strategy is to wait for the invitation, because not everyone is going to be ready to be seen and witnessed by their incredible spotlight. So they just have to be the spotlight, be the light, be the lighthouse, and shine their light and be ready for when people want to step into the spotlight and really have that beautiful energetic attraction for the people who are really going to recognize and value them for their gifts. And then the reflector is actually, their strategy is to wait a full lunar cycle because if they're here to kind of reflect the whole back to us, they essentially have to, almost like as if there's a rock on the table, they've got to go all the way around it to be able to see the whole thing, to be able to give us this impartial, beautiful report that they are able to give us through their ability to be so open, so receptive, and to be able to shine and reflect everything back to us. So each of us really has our own specific way to use our energy that actually creates magnetism. And when we're out of energetic integrity and we're not actually using our strategy correctly, we have what we call a not self emotion. So when we're experiencing these not self emotions, we're using our energy incorrectly. For the manifestors, it's anger. For generators and manifesting generators, it's frustration. For the projector, it's bitterness. And for the reflector, it's disappointment. Because we're all chasing our signature emotion, which for the manifestor is peace, generator and manifesting generator is satisfaction, projector is success, and reflector is surprise. So we're all chasing something, that signature feeling that actually, when we're in alignment to our energetic strategy, comes naturally to us. And our not self emotion is actually a little signpost that we're using our energy incorrectly. And when we're experiencing that, we're probably not experiencing a lot of magnetism in our life. But when we're experiencing our signature, that's the signpost that we're using our energy correctly. And we're essentially on the right track.
I love that. And I think when we really study all these different energy types, it just removes so much of judgment, like so much of separation that we've created in the society around this is one way how things should be. Like you should feel like this, you need to do this, this is the right way to do it. And I think most above everything, I think human design gives you this beautiful permission slip to actually be your authentic self, to actually live in your authentic design, to actually as per your strategy, as per your role on this planet, be, just simply be. And by my own experience, of course, that is so relieving. And that just like helps you to cut costs from so many of these unnecessary to-dos and limitations that we have been placed with, that we have been kind of like boxed into with all that conditioning. And of course, we were going to talk a little bit more about deconditioning when we come to specifically talking about a purpose. So talk a little bit about you. How did you kind of approach human design? When did it come into your life? And specifically in regards to like, was it connected to your purpose? Was it connected because you were curious about your purpose? Like, how did that play into your life? How did that happen?
Yeah. So it probably makes sense to go all the way back to when I found personal development in general. But essentially, in a nutshell, for my entire 20s, I really did not have a sense of purpose. I truly had no fucking idea what I was here to do. I just really was so lost. And I was trying on a million different hats to try and figure out what I was here for, because I was so convinced that I had to find this one thing that I was here for. And I was putting so much pressure on myself to really find what I was here for, because I was like, if I can just find my purpose, everything else is going to make sense. And I was putting so much emphasis on finding the purpose. And in the midst of trying to find my purpose, the other thing that I really was battling with was I really didn't think I had any strengths or gifts or talents. So there was such a big part of me that felt truly unworthy as well. And that was something that I was really navigating with, particularly in my 20s, was this feeling of comparison, no self-trust, no self-value. I couldn't self-celebrate. Like, I really didn't recognize myself for anything. And just in the first little bit of turning 30, like I think I was like 31, I went on a trip to America, which had literally been my dream since I was 7. And I saw my first episode of 90210. And I had been to America before, but this was a 3-month holiday. And my intention really with that move was to see if there was any opportunities that would eventually lead me to live there. And that was like my be all and end all. I thought that if I could move to America, I would of course find my purpose and everything would make sense and my life would be amazing and everything would just happen.
A big American dream. I think the rest of the world has been sold to.
Yes, exactly. So I went to America and I fully had all my hopes pinned that I was going to find myself, my purpose, my direction, everything on this trip. And I really was so blessed to have this really beautiful polarizing experience where on one hand, I was surrounded by my friends who were absolutely living their purpose. They were so sure of themselves, of their gifts, and they would really have knocked down any door to be able to get to where they were going. And like, they just had the certainty of themselves that like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to knock down any door. I'm going to like barge my way into any room to make sure that this is the opportunity that I get. And in witnessing them every day, I was like, whoa, I do not have that thing like within myself that I would be willing to do that. I'm like, even if I knew what door to knock on, even if I knew what my purpose was, I don't believe in myself to be able to make that happen. And so that was a huge piece of awareness for me. On the other hand, I was also working with some beautiful people who were supporting the homeless. And I really started to also get this little soul nudge that there was so much that you could do in the world in terms of making a contribution. And I really wanted to start stepping down that path, because previously I was working in event management, and the only thing that I would have really been able to do to stay in America would have been coordinating like celebrity events, which at one point in my life probably would have been my dream. But I really realized on that trip that, hey, actually, that's not who I am anymore. I do want to make a contribution of some kind, but I don't know what that looks like. And I don't obviously believe in myself. And I really need to be able to find myself so that when I find the purpose, I'm ready to knock on any door to make it happen. So I came home and I threw myself into personal development. And in my first workshop that I attended, I realized that I wanted to be a coach, or I wanted to step into personal development. So I went on this whole journey where I, got my coaching diploma, I got my breathwork training certificate. I did all of the things to be able to start to support people, and really started to step into that in my business. At the start of last year, I finally went from side hustling into jumping full-time into my business. And obviously that was immediately as the pandemic started. So it was like baptism by fire. And being self-responsible for your income is like a whole like hazing from the universe. There's so many tests, and like no matter how prepared you are for it, you're not prepared. It's like, I'm sure like having a baby or something life-changing, but it's such energetic mindset, spiritual shift to be full-time responsible for yourself in that way. So for me, it was such a big moment in life, and I really felt like I had just been dropped into like freezing cold water, and I was like, I like didn't know what to do. And so I was going through this whole process of really outsourcing my power. I was looking to friends, to other coaches, to other people in business I knew, to programs, to old programs I had stored on my computer. I, hired a coach, like did all these things because I was like, I need help to like figure this out, because I don't know what I'm doing here. And I just like really realized that I needed support. But in that whole process of asking everyone what to do and studying all these different things, none of it was just still working for me. And it either wasn't working at all, or it was working a little bit, but I was really angry. And it was like just not landing for me. And so I booked myself a human design reading because it had been popping up everywhere in my sphere. And I was like, maybe there's just something in this human design that's just going to give me a little bit of insight into who I am. And I don't know, maybe I'll get some clarity from this. And my God, as you would know from your reading, I was just like waves of permission to be myself, but also just an incredible amount of insight into why none of those things were working for me, is because they were really not for me, particularly as a manifester. So many of the strategies that I was taught was coming from a generator or projector perspective, which was never going to work for me. And when things obviously don't work for you, you start to go into self-doubt. And I think that what I realized is that what I was doing in my business particularly was I was asking for permission at every turn. And permission-based energy for a manifester is like repelling. Like it just literally does not create any magnetism. Mm-hmm. So for me, where I was like, do you reckon this will be okay? And what about if I did this? And what do you think of this idea? And I was like just permissioning everywhere. And in that, I was constantly getting feedback and tweaks and, no, I don't think you should do that. You're not ready for that. And don't do that. And what if you did this? And is that going to repeat? It was just like constant pushback, which for a manifestor, resistance, anger. So I realized that I wasn't in my informing energy. So towards the end of last year, as I started to step into studying human design, I started to really play with this, and some things started to open up. But it wasn't until I studied human design and I really understood my chart and really stepped into embodying my strategy of informing, everything just opened up. And all of the results, all of the things that I was so desperately trying to do for years just happened. And it was like everything just suddenly went, and it worked. Because I was fully in integrity to my strategy, and I wasn't trying to be anyone else anymore. I wasn't pulling myself out of alignment by fitting myself into a box that I didn't fit in. the biggest thing for me was really the fact that I didn't see the way that I wanted to do business anywhere else, because at that point I didn't have any other manifestors in my sphere. So I was essentially like just jumping off a cliff and saying like, well, I hope I have a parachute and like hope it works, because I really just had to trust that even if I hadn't seen it done before, that it would work. And I had to build that trust within my own strategy of my energy type, and really just unlock the fact that I could work in surges and rests, that I could, do things that I hadn't seen done anywhere, that I could do things in a completely different way, that I didn't need a DM strategy, that I didn't need all these things that I just didn't want to do, and that I could do things in a way that felt in alignment to me and still create the results. I didn't need to be on social media every day. I could take a month off if I wanted to, and it wouldn't impact my success. Like I really started to build my own stories around what success looked like. And honestly, it has been so game changing. Like even I just launched a new program called Alchemy, and it's all about embodying your chart. But this was the first offering that I really did not ask for any feedback. I didn't tell anyone it was even really happening. I just created it and I was like, hey, it's dropping on Sunday. Just like launched it, to the ladies who had done human design readings, and then basically just launched it to the public this week. But I was like really wanting to see if an experiment with my own strategy within this whole launch process. And it has been so much easier than anything I've ever done before. And I just think that it was just really from understanding myself on such a deeper layer, because like you said, there is not just one way, and the only way that we should be worried about is our own way. Because
Absolutely.
we're all so individual and we all have such a unique gift and purpose to give to the world, and the way in which our energy works to bring that to life.
Yeah, and I loved how you kind of like said that you didn't even ask for any feedback or anything, and you just kind of like went there and just launched it. And for me, I was like, honestly, the whole process of asking for feedbacks and stuff, I've never done that, honestly. Like naturally, it's never been a part of my strategy. And of course, I think as a manifesting generator, it's not even so much. But also wanted to just kind of like, because you've just kind of like really activated a lot of things, and I just feel like yes, like when I started my business, I had no idea about the whole coaching industry and such like that. I knew I have gifts to share, and I just went online and I just started speaking, and I just started doing cards or whatever was my way of channeling that message at that point. The method might have evolved over the time, but the crux at the why behind why I started was actually from a place of joy, from a place of just before all the conditions were placed, like before 1 year into the industry, and I started seeing all the other people and their ways, and the how coaches should be, and how things should work if you're a spiritual leader or whatever that may look like. But yes, and I'll be like really honest, like things actually worked out much better when I was not conditioned with all of these to-dos than when they started seeping into my reality, and I started being like, oh my god, I should try this, I should do this, I should do this. Until I think definitely the time we worked together and gave me an opportunity to just like let go of all that stuff, which is like just not even me. And I think sometimes, which is why I think it's really great a lot of times, if you do not have a background in certain things, because you do not feel compelled to follow any rules. Like for me, and I think I have spoken about it to you as well, but for me, like I had a digital media background, so that shadow kept on playing over and over and over again about me checking the numbers, about me checking the social media analytics. Like I was way obsessed about it than probably anybody who's never had worked in that industry ever before. And all of this conditioning plays such a key role in us getting separated from our authentic blueprint. And I think design at the base of it is really about, I believe it's about living your authentic blueprint. It's about stepping into your 100% authenticity.
Yeah,
So I would,
absolutely.
yeah, so I would love you to kind of like talk a little bit more about how can we tap into this authentic blueprint through our design, but even otherwise, and craft, not craft, but somewhere reveal, of course. I think somewhere, if you were not thirsty to find your purpose, I also feel like sometimes in the usual manifesting world, it might be like, oh, you were so desperate, so you would never get it. But I also
Mm,
believe that probably the reason why you actually manifested it was because there was this thirst inside you, which had a reason. Like I read
mm,
somewhere, manifesting generators, you have a thirst for knowledge, and that's good. We need it. And I was
mm.
like, wow, I have felt so guilty all my life digging podcasts and books and knowledge. Like I am
Yeah.
thirsty for knowledge.
You're a you're a first name profile though too, aren't you? From
Yeah,
memory?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
that whole profile is the
yeah,
the
yeah.
seeker of knowledge. So that makes sense.
Absolutely. But I have felt so much guilt around, because I specifically the last year, honestly, because I started seeing
Yeah.
all these um, business coaching uh, advices, if I may say so,
Yeah.
around how you should um, just play out in a completely opposite way, actually. Like you don't have to look for stuff outside, but sometimes having an open crown and open ajna,
Mhm.
like that's something which is
Yeah.
like I love it when kind of like,
Yeah.
yes, I need to detox, but I also love when that external knowledge comes to me. So just
Mm.
quoting it as an example, uh, how can we truly tap into that authentic blueprint with the whole conditioning that we have been brought up with in our society, in our growing up years? And I would love if you could probably tie it up with a little bit of the shadows that they create, and then we start repelling our own selves, a part of our own true self.
Yes. So I think like understanding your human design and really having this beautiful framework that's a visual aid in front of you, essentially to see, like, when you pull up your chart, there's a body graph and there's all the energy centers in there with your gates and channels and everything that kind of make up your energetics. So you're witnessing and observing your energies in this little beautiful little graph. And I think what is beautiful about this is we can see the shadows, as you call them, in our open centers, and we can see our not self, which for me, for example, with my open heart, like one of the biggest shadows in that aspect is feeling unworthy and undervalued. And I said to you, like,
Mm.
in my whole 20s, I was so feeling like I had no worth, I had no value, and I was constantly trying to find a purpose to prove that. So I think you can start to see where your shadows are. And this is really what we're here to learn, but it's what we're here to learn actually, because it's also what we're here to impact and influence, and how we're actually here to profit from these centers as well, because we are actually designed and geared to learn, to embody, and to teach from these spaces. So I think just having the awareness and actually seeing it visually gives you the ability to move through and start the deconditioning process, because you actually then have a language and a framework to understand yourself and why maybe you're experiencing certain things, or why you do things in a way that you do, or how you're here to make decisions. And even little things like, for you as a manifesting generator, you've got this beautiful hummingbird energy where you're here to be multi-passionate, multifaceted, to bring multiple things to life and kind of change direction at will. And previously, you might have been conditioned to think you have to stick with one thing, lock it in, like choose one offspring, one niche, rah, rah, rah. And it's like, if you really stayed on that path, that would feel like death to you. So it's like understanding what we're actually here for, I think immediately gives us the accessibility to move and transcend our conditioning, because we can start to stand firm in our conviction of what is true for us.
Hmm.
Mm.
I wouldn't deny there has been such a big shame around changing my paths, my career, or changing what I'm doing. Even in the last 2 years, I have felt so compelled to just follow that one specific path, to stick to one thing. Like I've done so many things, it's even as though it's been just 2 years within my business. And I mean, for me, the best thing is that I've created a platform and I can just do 10 different things without
Yeah.
having to change the structure, the base of it. But
Mm.
yet I wouldn't deny how much, you know, like most of the times it's not people who hold you cage. It's not even society so much as we like to kind of like blame it. It's us. It's we standing in our own
Yeah.
ways, because we believe that if we do this, then it'll have repercussions. If we do this, then we will not be accepted, or people won't like it, or all of these conditionings, depending on where our shadows lie, of course, our childhood and shadow self lies.
Yeah.
But yes, I really had so much shame around changing things a bit, not saying you are not consistent. I think that's so big. Uh,
Oh.
you've talked so much about it, I think. Uh,
Yeah.
and and I think the number one business strategy, I mean, you open any business account, it's going to be, if you're not consistent, you cannot expect this, you cannot expect this, you cannot do this. And I think that
Yeah.
creates such self-sabotaging behaviors, to be very honest, because
Yes.
outright, as you said, when you started to find your business, you realize, you started to find your purpose, you recognize that you need to first start believing yourself. Like that's
Mm.
like the starting point. And when we
Yeah.
hear such strategies, our first take on it is like, if I do this, then this will happen. If I don't do this, then this will happen. And outright,
Yes.
even before anything can happen, we like self-sabotage it right there energetically. And then I think, of course, unknowingly, somewhere even physically.
Yeah.
So, have you had any self-sabotaging experiences?
Have I? I think, like, honestly, my entire business journey up until the end of last year was like self-sabotage, truly, because now that I can really see, like I said, this like my whole foundation was built off seeking permission and validation, and not in like I wanted approval, like, you know, a little pat on the head that I was doing a good job. Like, I wanted my ideas validated. Like, am I doing the right thing? Is this right for me? Like, you know, everything was like, I needed approval and permission. And I think that like that was self-sabotage in itself, because I was so, again, like you said, desperate to make it work and following all of these systems and structures, especially like, for example, with consistency. Like, if my energy is here to work in surges and rests, and my entire chart is just that amplified anyway, because like my profile is like inward outward, my authority is like waves anyway. So if my whole energy is here to be cyclical and I'm trying to be consistent, then of course there are going to be times when that feels wrong to me and I want to
Mm.
retreat. And when I was ignoring that desire to retreat and go inwards and rest and pushing myself, when I was speaking and showing up in those times, I felt so insecure because every part of me just wanted to be offline and hiding. And I think that like that is a natural part of my cycle. But what I was making it mean about me was that I wasn't going to be successful because I didn't, like, you know, I had to keep showing up and I was pushing myself. And then it was actually making me lose trust in myself, because I was showing up in times when it would almost feel like I was insecure to be on video or to be online, because I was pushing myself to do things that weren't in that natural energetic alignment. And then of course, when you're pushing yourself to show up and you have no desire to show up, then of course the resonance that other people are experiencing isn't going to be there. So then I'm feeling insecure, I'm showing up, pushing myself to say whatever it is that I feel like is going to be valuable. No one's getting value in it because they don't believe a word I'm saying, because I'm like wanting to be at home hermiting. And therefore, like, I'm then reaffirming the not self of the open heart of feeling unworthy and undervalued because nobody's resonating with what I'm saying. So it was this vicious cycle, which then also bled into the mistrust and self-doubt that I had to show up when I was in a surge because things hadn't been working. Whereas if I had have just allowed myself, I think, all this time to be in this beautiful surge and rest energy, when I was in my surge and I show up and I'm in my surge, like, there's so much that's created in that time. And when I'm resting, like, I'm supported anyway, it's fine. But like, I
Mm.
think it's just like building that belief and knowing that like no one's going to forget about me. The algorithm's not going to bloody boot me off Instagram. Like, it's fine. I'm going to be fine. I don't need to worry about all that shit. And then I can come back on and I'll show up in my energy and my full energy again with shit that I really want to talk about with the full fire and conviction that I have. And it's going to land because I actually am resonant and enthusiastic and in the energy to share that creation or share that offering or whatever that might be. And, I think that what I love now is that I feel like my community, like I know you would know, like you guys just expect that now. I'm just going to be like, and just throwing a heap of stuff at you and then I'll just be gone. And then I'll come back with the stuff at you and then I'll be gone again. And it's like, I think that like people don't, I don't think people are necessarily worried about that. I don't think it impacts my relationships with the people that I have online or my community or anything like that. Because I think what happens in that exchange as well is that instead of just giving people the energetic equivalent of junk food every single day for the sake of showing up and just doing filler posts and like trying to push myself, when I do show up, it's like, hey, like join me for a 5-star meal of like the words that I've created for you. And it's like an experience because I've like waited until there's something really potent to share. In saying that, this is where I also think discernment comes into play because I think we can really use this as an excuse. Like I could be like, oh, I'm hermiting. I don't want to live. I'm hermiting. Whereas like I may actually just be like avoiding it. So it's like having that honest discernment with yourself. It's like, when is it energetically true for you? And when are you just using it as an excuse not to do scary things?
Absolutely. And hearing you, it just makes me feel like how contrasting experiences we can have online or even on the same journey. I think, again, I think very much based on a design. Like for me, I think last year sometime I started actually attracting and reading actually because I started following a lot of coaches and stuff because I was in the niche. And then all of this advice around pause, rest, wait, stop. And that for my hummingbird energy kind of became a little restrictive. Because even when I was really wanting to work on a Sunday, and I don't want to say even work anymore these days, I wanted to probably create something, I wanted to do something, there was a phase I was deliberately stopping myself because, oh no, you should be doing this. You should be resting. You should be pausing. You should be not, I wouldn't even say resting. Like rest is, I think, really productive. I would say not doing anything. And for me, like that became really restrictive and that became really suffocating because I had all of this energy, which was not channeling anywhere. And that created a lot of restriction within me. Because for me, the shame became like, if you do more, then you are not a good manifester. And I think being in the spiritual community, I think this can be so big sometimes because a lot of emphasis, a lot of times is placed on intentions, on allowing things to play out, but also not taking actions with it. Like how you said, discernment is needed because sometimes even you can kind of like go into that energy of like, oh, it's my hermit mode. And like this is so necessary, the discernment. Do you think this discernment can be like identified according to our design, according to our authority, or our energy type?
I think it really does come from self-awareness and just being willing to be truthful with yourself. I think like really being honest, and I think checking in with like, this is where I think like our connection to our body really comes into play, because it's like you can kind of tell in your body, like, am I just afraid? Or, and I think that fear and that kind of like anxiety and like that thought of like, for example, if it was showing up on video, if there's a part of you that's like, oh, I'm actually really afraid to do that. And you're just like, oh, well, my human design says that I should rest. So I'm in rest mode right now. I'll get to that when I'm in a surge. Like if you are actually like, if you can be really honest with yourself and say, I'm actually kind of like quite energetic right now, I'm just avoiding this. And I think that's where that honest conversation comes into play. And I guess like our authority or our decision-making center, we can potentially use to support us to make decisions when we do feel like we've gone into fear over, energetic integrity. And I think that we can maybe use our authority a little bit to give us a bit of a decision-making guide. Like, you know, for example, with that gut yes, gut no of the sacral center, like if you checked in with yourself and you were like, am I afraid? And it might be like, ooh, a little contraction, and you're like, damn it. You know, like, so it's like checking in with your body and seeing and being really honest with yourself.
Yeah, and I love how much, I think, because probably you're a breathwork facilitator, perhaps, but how much body work comes in your work. And off late, I think my biggest takeaway in the last few months has been to really use my body along with my mind and my spirit to co-create. And
Yeah.
body is something essentially which a lot of us forget, I would say forget to tap into.
Yeah.
We literally forget, like a lot of times we wouldn't even recognize that, oh my god, it's like I'm holding my breath, I'm not
Yeah.
breathing, I'm literally not breathing, I'm so
Yeah.
anxious, I'm so tight in
Yes.
my body.
Because so many of us are living in a stress response. So when we are in a stress response, we have short, shallow breaths, or we're holding our breath. And this is where I think, you know, coming into more of that resourced state and like allowing yourself to connect to the breath, connect to the body, can bring you out of that survival state and into that more grounded, resourced state. And doing, you know, breathing activities is a beautiful breath where you inhale through the nose for 4 counts, hold your breath for 6 counts, and exhale through your mouth for 8 counts. Even just doing a few cycles of that can bring you back into your body. And I think it's just from, again, we're so conditioned to operate from the head and what makes sense. And we're doing so much in the head all the time that we're not even realizing how much stress that's putting on the body and how disconnected we are from the body as well.
Yeah, and I think when we tap into our body, we can actually tap into what makes us really happy, what makes us really joyful, or what makes us feel right, aligned, and knowing that, okay, maybe this is something that I would want to go for, maybe this is something it doesn't feel good. And I think, yes, discernment, I think this is a beautiful way to kind of discern, this is a beautiful
Yeah.
way to discern if action or non-action, or a specific strategy, or a specific path, or even a profession, or anything, does it feel good in our body or does it not? And I think it's true for all energy types. Somewhere the wisdom of our body, it's really, really, really rich and true. Like
Yeah.
our body never lies.
Yeah. No, it sure does not. but
Yes,
we pretend we don't hear its call, that's for sure.
absolutely, absolutely. I think our
Yeah.
body does really tell you right away what's right, what's wrong for me,
Yeah.
where to go, where not to go. So tying this to our purposes, I think a lot of us right now are kind of in this space where we are really, really fun. And the reason, I think the good reason why people are obsessed with purpose right now is because we want more from life. We don't just want something to just pay our bills. And I think for the longest time, this was like, oh, you're a creative person. And I think we're really recognizing, heck, we all are creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we all have the right to be happy. I think the underlying current is like, you don't have to suffer in your job. You don't have to do anything just so that it can help you pay the bills. There is another way. There is a better way to actually find. What would you suggest? Like, is this something like purpose specifically? Is this something like, okay, what is my purpose? What do I need to do in this lifetime on this planet? What is my role? Or it's more like, what do I feel called towards? What makes me excited? What makes me passionate? What makes me feel good right now in this moment? Because I know a lot of people, what comes with this consciousness and this awareness is this pause, is this really big holding yourself back energy. And I think a lot of us in the 20s are right now experiencing that, because we've kind of like become really, with the whole last year, I think there's a big pause energy kind of. We were like rushing, and then we were just like suddenly paused. And now we are paused, And like, we're like almost frozen, a lot of us.
I know. We don't know how to unpause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like just completely frozen. Like, I don't want to, we see how we've probably self-sabotaged, how we've probably not done things which were honorable to our true energy, but now where to go? How,
Yeah.
like, you've lost that energetic, what is it? Sounds like a motor. But that momentum
Yeah.
you've lost that, and
Yeah.
how to, and like to gain it back in the right direction, like how to
Mm.
navigate this phase.
Mm. So I think that the first thing that I love to share is my definition of purpose, because I think that what was really causing me so much pain in my 20s was this idea that I was here for one specific thing. And I think that like I was so desperate and frantic to find this one thing. And I thought, well, what if I don't find it? What if I'm not here for anything? Like, what if do I even have one? Like, I was really starting to get stressed and seeing other
Yes,
people in all their career fulfillment and all of these sort of things. It
so
was
many
making
people
me,
think that, I think, what if, I don't think I have a purpose. And I've
yeah,
heard a lot of people say that.
yeah. And I think that I was witnessing all these people in my eyes find their purpose and being like, what's wrong with me? Like, why haven't I found it yet? Like, when am I going to find my purpose? Oh my God, I haven't found this one thing. And I think what I would love to reassure anyone listening or watching
It's
this.
so much like love, I think.
Yeah, such it is. Well, interestingly enough, our identity center is the home of direction and love and identity. So yeah, they kind of do fuse together. But I think that purpose is not this one thing that is going to strike you like a lightning bolt, like walking down the street. It's not one specific thing. Like, you may not have come here to be a teacher at a school for 80 years. Like, you might not have come here to, you know, be a professional swimmer. You might not have come here to be a TV host, like whatever that might be. It's not necessarily about finding one specific thing that's going to complete you.
I think credential. We are kind of like really, I think we are kind of like really chasing the credentials. What's that one credential I need, or I need to chase towards, I think.
But I think what really we are all looking for, rather than a purpose of this one specific elusive thing, is actually a purposeful, meaningful existence. And I think when we can drop out of looking for our purpose and look for purpose and meaning within ourselves and our own life, we recognize that our purpose is constantly evolving, because we are. Like, what I'm doing now is not what I was doing last year, is not what I was doing the year before. Like, it is constantly evolving. And I almost guarantee that in the next 10 to 20 years, I'll probably be doing something completely different that is not this at all. Like, and that is fine and perfect for me, because I recognize that I'm not necessarily here for one thing. Like, I don't even think I necessarily came to this earth to just speak about human design forever. Like, I'm sure that there are so many things that I'm here to do, but I think what the universe is always guiding us back to, and what the universe recognizes and rewards, is us being in alignment with who we are and our truth. And I think that the
In the
more that we can,
moment.
yes, in the moment, like the more that we can honor our in the moment truth and just allow ourselves, like you said, to follow our joy, follow our passion, what feels good, the more that that is naturally brought into our life, and the more that we just allow it to evolve and unfold. When we can kind of drop out of looking for this one specific thing, we can start to really move in a direction in life that really just supports us to be in alignment to what feels the best for us in any given moment, and knowing that that is going to change, and you can let go of it and change your direction, change your mind as often as you like, and that is completely perfect, because whatever it is that really brings you that sense of fulfillment within you, that's what gives you the sense of purpose. And the more that you can have fulfillment, enjoyment, peace, satisfaction, joy, like whatever that might be, the more that that is going to give you that sense of purpose. So following the things that you love to do, that feel really good to you, that feel exciting, the things that you're good at. And quite often, things that people come to you for advice for all the time, or that people request your support with, often there's clues there to really start as well.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Um, and I think also you spoke about it earlier. You did not have any manifestors in your realms before. You kind of like took a human design reading, or you were like actually investigating or diving deeper into your chart or into your design type. But then have you like lately started to actually start like who were really the people who and how did they actually help you, and how did they actually help anyone? Like what is the role of these expanders, quote unquote, to help us expand into our purpose, into our visions, into whatever we feel called, as you said, to follow in this moment, in this time, space, and reality. Yeah.
I think looking for proof it's possible. And sometimes we don't have that in our immediate reality, and it's about seeking it out. So looking for people that, for me, have a successful business based on the fact that they barely show up.
Yeah.
And there was so many, you know, and I think that like looking for people that, you know, have the type of success that you want, or have the type of career you want, or have the type of freedom you want, or have the type of relationship you want, whatever that is, looking for proof. And it can be online, it can be in real life, it can just be like a fragment of that person that you really enjoy, that maybe you really love the way that they show up, or their joy, or whatever that might be. And really starting to build that evidence and build that proof for yourself that it's possible. Because the more that our brain sees that it's possible, the more we start to believe that it's possible for ourselves as well.
Going back to, I think, self-belief. A lot of people are very hesitant to follow their purpose, to follow their path, or to follow their joy in the moment. It's simply because they don't trust or believe that that can pay their bills, or that can I mean, yeah, financial security is something which really does stop and make people really, really question if this is the direction I should move into, if this is worth it, if this is even worth it. And I think even that again boils down to to our beliefs, to our belief on our own capability, that my ability to make money is not dependent on the organization I'm working, but it's like in me. And how and that just stays with me if I'm working with an organization, or for myself, or for anything else outside.
And I think this is what I love about human design. Although it might not tell you that this is what you're specifically going to do, like it doesn't give you a profession, it's not like pulling something out of a hat. But what it does give you, I think, is a clarity of how you're here to operate in the world, and how you're here to exchange your energy. There is a part of your human design that is called your incarnation cross, and it's kind of the 4 unique energetics that drive, I believe, everything that you'll do in life. So whether I do human design, whether I do breath work, whether I become a lawyer, like whatever it is, like those energetics are going to be the driving force for whatever I do. So I think we can start to really understand through human design, not necessarily what we're here to do per se, but the energies that are going to drive it. And when we look at our open centers, we can also see exactly what we're here to contribute. So these are really good places to really start to look, to start to get the brain kind of moving. For example, my open centers, I've got my open heart center, which I'm here to therefore support people with confidence and empowerment and self-approval. That's obviously been a huge part of my journey, and it's what I've always supported and taught. I have an undefined sacral center opposite to you, but that's really about slowing down, rest, therapies. You know, what am I always saying? You don't have to be consistent. Take a month off, whatever you want to do. Like I'm always like encouraging people to slow down if that feels good, and do things in a nourishing way. And then I have an undefined head and an undefined ajna. And this is all about giving people inspiration, hope, faith, and a new way of doing things. So you can even see, and I'm sure that, you know, you can even hear in like how I communicate, these things come naturally to me to speak about and to support people with. And human design has just given me a language to do that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people stop themselves from diving deep into these archetypes or these things because they feel like, I don't want to do something because my chart says so. When in
Mm.
a sense, I think it's not, I think take what resonates at the moment and leave the rest. And I think for anybody who's
Yes.
listening to this podcast, uh, though most likely it will resonate, if not at the moment, because you probably have some resistance around it, but it'll make sense anyway. Because I love how you said in the end that it's just like a it comes to you naturally. And if
Mm.
you're in complete opposition with it right now, it's going to feel like, nah, I'm not this person right now. I'm not this person. I don't
Yeah.
vibe with human design. Or I think just like pick up your astrology chart or any chart for that matter, and you feel like,
Yeah.
oh, this is not for me because this is not how I am. But maybe I think just giving an open-ended uh, possibility and a scope of probably reflecting on, maybe you are kind of in this specific area. Are you being completely in denial or in opposition or in
Yes.
resistance to it?
Well, I
Uh,
think as well, sometimes when we have been living in our conditioning, it's hard to recognize ourselves as that. You know, even I
yeah.
noticed that a lot of the readings that I've done with manifestors, to really have that like bigness, like, oh, we're here to take up space, we're here to inform, like all of these things, like a lot of people like, ugh, like even me, I was like, oh, damn, that sounds hard. But like, because I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But it's like, as soon as we kind of like face off with the reason why that maybe feels scary and why that feels like there's resistance there, it's like, oh, because I've had conditioning, I've had people tell me not to be that way, I've had people tell me to seek approval, I've, you know, learned that that's how I receive love, like all of these little things that we can kind of start to unpack to then step into that energy and go, oh, actually, this is what really feels good. It's always felt good. And
Yeah.
I've been trying to hold myself back to people please and to be more palatable for other
Mm.
people and to be liked and not criticized and all of these sort of things. But when we actually realize that that's what feels good for us, it's so liberating.
Yeah, and I love how amazingly working with the chart is intricate with doing shadow work, for example, or doing inner child work, because it's not like, as you said, yeah, your chart is not something which gives you like something right off the hat. It's like, this is what you're supposed to do. It gives you like a guiding manual to help you
Yeah.
do the work. Like, it does not mean that you don't have to face off the resistance or the shadow aspects of you,
Yeah.
uh, but it just gives you kind of like a guidance, a manual on how to go about it. So
Mm.
just touching briefly on, like you also talked about, like you might be doing human design today, you might be a lawyer tomorrow, I mean, who knows? But basically so I mean, I know a lot of people have this resistance, and I spoke about it earlier about uh, I don't think I have a purpose, and maybe I'm just here for a 9 to 5, or maybe I'm just here to take care of my kids, for example. And
Mm.
I know that's really a big one. Maybe I'm just here to be uh, to whatever, and not diminishing any of that. Like, those are great roles to play. Like, how do you think our purpose also seeps into our personal life and not just restricted to our careers, quote unquote? Because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we can get fixated on, my purpose is all about my career, or it's nothing to do with my career at all. Like, these are the two places I really see this polarizing opinions and views around it.
Yeah. So there is actually a part of human design that might explain this. I feel like there's nothing human design can't explain. I think everyone in my life is probably like, oh my God, she's talking about human design again. Because there is, within the energetics that lie in our body, they fall within these three categories of what we call circuitry. So there's individual circuitry, collective circuitry, and tribal circuitry. So, for
Hmm.
example, my circuitry is basically all individual. So, I'm here to be an individual. I'm here for individual reasons. I am here, my incarnation cross, all the energetics of my mission, my universal assignment is to empower people to be individually themselves. And in order to do that, I need to be individually myself and rebel against the rules and the systems and the structures and do things my way. And like, my energy supports me in doing that. So all of mine is about individual, because through being the individual and marching to the beat of my own drum, doing whatever the fuck I like, I'm naturally impacting the collective, but I'm here for an individual purpose. Then we have the collective circuitry, and that is exactly what it sounds like. It's about kind of more collective focus. So it's like looking at like you know, I was talking to someone the other day on a reading, and, you know, we were talking about our differing views of seeing the world and like what's kind of the space we operate from. But she had a very collective heavy circuitry. So hers was always looking outside, being like, how could I fix that? Like, why are we doing that? Like hers is like always like looking outwards and what can she do or be to create the solution for that. And then we have tribal circuitry, and the tribe is all about family. So if you had a really high tribal circuitry, then perhaps you would truly feel like your purpose was being a mum of 6 kids or something like that, because the tribe was so important to you, and being there for your family and staying home and having that space for them. And of course, like either way, there's conditioning. It's like, you know, for women, if they choose career, it's like, or choose themselves, it's like, but what about the family? And then like, if you choose family, it's like, but what about the career? It's like, you know, but what if only one was correct for us? Or maybe we're here to have both because we've got kind of more of a beautiful balance of our energies. But it's like, for me, like, I just know that the more I can be myself, the more I do things in my own way, in what inspires me, delights me, what excites me, the more I naturally have impact. Whereas some people naturally have impact through seeking out the collective issues. And some people are here to support the tribe, to have our backs, to, you know, be that beautiful family rock for us. So I think that's where that kind of starts to clear a little bit of that up, is like, let's just let people be themselves.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, choose what feels good for you. There really is no way you can get it wrong if you're being truthful to yourself.
Yeah, which is why I said I think somehow human design is the foundation is truly just being your authentic blueprint, being your authentic self, like nothing more, nothing less. And I love how it removes, like every time I think I speak to you, and I actually get this kind of this energy of this no judgment zone, like absolutely no judgment zone. Like I don't feel it even sneakily. And I think, as you said, like you were having this conversation about somebody with a completely have a different opinion, a different views on the world, and still you could co-create, you could be in that synergistic synergy, like basically just like being in the same space and actually having uh, a conversation which supports you mutually. And I think in this time when there is so much of separation around, this is how this is right, this is wrong, and I think this is something that we need the most, to honor each other's truths, even if they are not the same like ours, to honor each other's journey, even if they're not like ours. And I think there has been just so much of conditioning over the periods, over the time age, I think, to be all of us to be the same. I think there's this sense of like, I want to belong, I want to be accepted, and to be that, I have to be like them. Oh, I think that's such a big one, which is why we all have been trying to fit into one box, trying to follow the same rat race of having a corporate job, having MBA. Like at the base of it, these things might sound very ambitious corporate stuff. Like the foundation is really like, you would just want to be accepted and loved and feel belonged.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I think that like, that's one thing that I actually just recorded a podcast myself this afternoon. And that's one of the things that I said human design really has given me, is because I now so deeply understand myself, but I have this incredible framework for even like, you know, looking at my mum's chart or looking up, you know, my friend's chart. And I like immediately, you know, when we're engaging, like if I, you know, maybe hear their conditioning or their not self, or hear them say something that's in direct opposition to the way that I would do it, rather than like get defensive or be like, no, that's not right. You know, I can go into that, like, you know, this is what I believe in space. I'm like, oh, actually that's totally right for them. So cool. Good on you. You're living your truth, you know? And it's like, I can now have such a more deeper, I think, appreciation for how everyone does things. And even, you know, when I see people, you know, online, if I see like, because at the moment it's very polarizing, and like even the exact opposite to what I feel, or the polarization to how I feel or what I truly believe, I'm like, yeah, but maybe that's their truth. And like, maybe that's their journey, you know, and maybe that's what they're here to impart. And like, it's okay that it's not mine. And I think that like, if we all Like the more we know ourselves, and I think that if we all had access to this amazing framework, we could really start to, I think, have more appreciation, empathy, to be like,
Empathy. Yes.
that's her defined ajna. She's meant to be opinionated. You know, it's like we can kind of like start to have that framework of like acceptance and just be like, oh yeah, like, because even I was speaking to a lady the other day and she has a defined ajna, I have an undefined ajna, and she's like, oh, I'm very opinionated and I don't really have the capacity to see much gray, and I know that's a really bad trait to have. And I was like, actually, that's exactly what the energy you're here to bring. You're here to be definitive and strong in your conviction, and I'm here to be all about the gray. But it's like when we know that about ourselves, we can stop making things wrong about
Mm,
ourselves, and we can start really accepting ourselves.
this feels just so right and so good in my heart, because yes, we are living in really polarizing times, but to have this empathy and to have this acceptance for everyone to thrive together with, and I think
Yeah.
somewhere, if talking in a more spiritual sense, our purpose is to have kind of like this sense of empathy for each other in a way that we can all coexist and thrive together, even when we are
Yes.
not the same color, the same race, the same religion,
Yeah.
same views, same same conditioning. Like you and I, we both have such different backgrounds, like completely different backgrounds and completely different childhood stories and all that stuff. And I think I've said a lot of times in our conversation, oh my God, exactly the same. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. And most of the people, like most of the friendships I've had, most of the connections I've had, the thing which I've always noticed, which kind of like connects us, has been like everybody's, because they see a part of me and they feel like, oh my God, I'm exactly like that, and that's why they feel kind of like connected with me. But really off late, I'm really recognizing, and I think yesterday I had a live and I actually spoke about it, something around this, like what if we can actually start appreciating even the contrast, even that what is not like me. Oh yeah, interesting. Maybe I can learn something from that. Maybe that's something for me to appreciate, to get
Yeah.
inspired from. Maybe not
Yeah.
not take it, not make it your own, because I know one of my uh, patterns have been kind of like growing up all the time in my adolescent years or in my teenage years, has been to kind of like,
Mm.
oh my God, this is so good, let me be like you, and
Yeah.
so maybe you would like me, or you would appreciate me, you would
Yes.
accept me. And I feel I have dissolved so much of my authentic blueprint, which in the last few years I
Mm.
feel like I'm just getting it back together with the work. But really it's been really about like, we don't even understand how we end up dissolving our true fragments and trying to fit in and trying to be loved, when I think somewhere if we
Mm.
kind of like give ourselves that love, we wouldn't actually be needing it
Yes.
to be
And I,
validated from the
yeah.
outside.
And I think like one of the things is that the more that we understand ourselves, like the more that we're like not trying to change other people or impose ourselves onto others or absorb other people's realities as well. Like
Mhm.
imagine how boring it would be if everyone was the exact same. Like I can only imagine how cool the world would be if we were all just fully living like our authentic truth. Like imagine how cool and different it would be, and how much like art would be being created, and how much like excitement and joy there'd be. Like imagine if everyone was living their truth and doing what they love. Like how inspiring that would be, just like being out in public, seeing everyone dressed different and like marching to the beat of their own drum and just doing like cool shit that inspire them. Like the amount of like level up the whole collective would have would
Yes,
just
it's insane.
be insane. Because like at the moment we always talk about moving the collective forward, right? And like raising consciousness and all of these sort of things that we talk about. But it's like if the whole world is trying to be a door in a car to move this collective forward, like how are we going to get anywhere? Like we need
Mm.
tires, we need a steering wheel, we need chairs, like we need an engine, like we need so many different things, not just like 8.5 billion doors. So I think
Yes.
like when we're trying to be something that we're not, we're actually like slowing down the progress of humanity. Like the more that we are in our own like lane, our own truth, like being the part and the role and the piece of the puzzle that we came here to play, that's how we move the collective forward. That's how we all start to harmonize and work together. Because I honestly think that so much of the bubbling frustration that is like really coming to a head at the moment within the collective is because we have lived out of alignment, not only within ourselves, but as a whole for so long. Like we are not living in our true nature. And like, this is like nature's way and like the planet's way of being like, hey, something ain't working, like take a look. And like now we really get, like you said, this opportunity with this pause to really, we can either keep living the way that we've been living and it's not going to work and the planet's probably going to like burn down and we're not even going to have anywhere to live, or we can start to actually really take this as a signpost that it's really time for us all to step into our truth and go from there and like actually create the world that we want to live in and actually create the kind of world that we would want to pass over to our kids and their kids.
I love those words. Like, I think they're so enriching. And I think like if I would have listened to these words probably 10 years ago, I would have been like, some deep philosophical shit is there. But now going through the process in the last few years, I can just say like they actually make sense to my mind. It's not just philosophical, spiritual, some words, like sprinkled out there. They actually hold meaning, integrity, and truth. And yes, I think it's so much like, how you have a favorite quote from your childhood books, and then it makes sense to you like after 20 years. Oh my God, this is what it meant.
Yeah, totally. I know. Well, even like my favorite book is The Alchemist. And
Mine
what
too.
I find, and what I find so funny about that is like I just feel like that book is so the journey that we all go on. And it's so, the work that I really teach is like the fact that like, even it was my journey, like I went all the way to America to try and find myself. And then it turned out I was just there all along at home. Like it wasn't until I got home that I really realized and found myself. And I think that's such a great metaphor. Like we are constantly looking outside for our purpose, for our thing, for our direction, for how to be, how to live, what's right, what's wrong, like the system, the strategy, the structure, the copy, like all of those sort of things. We're always looking outside of ourselves, but like everything that we're looking for is right inside of us. And it always has been.
Yes. Ooh, I love these words. I love you and I love your energy. Thank you so much for sharing it today. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us, like everybody who's tuning into this at whatever time, space, and reality. I think we can feel into these words and we can feel into this this wisdom, I think. And thank you for sharing all these beautiful tools. And lastly, how would you suggest someone to go about to start their human design journey?
Yes. So you can pull up a free chart. I use Jovian Archive. I can send you the link, but you can pull up a free chart. It is going to look like chaos and it's probably like you're going to be like, oh, what is that? But the main things that you can kind of already know is just the words that are down the side. So you'll be able to see if you're a manifestor, generator, projector, manifesting generator, reflector. You'll be able to see what your authority is, and you can start to do a little bit of research online or Instagram, whatever you want to do to find out those kind of like basics about yourself. But if you do kind of want to go deep and unpack your chart and have it kind of explained to you, then yeah, I would suggest obviously to book a reading. You can go to my website, which is kirstenmorrison.co/human design, human-design, and you can book a reading through there and we can totally go through your whole chart. Because one of the things that I find is that some of the human design language can be a little bit confusing, or like it doesn't really like have a practical meaning and you're like, hey. So like one of the things that I really try and do is to make it really practical and easily digestible and relatable so that you can walk away feeling like you can apply it straight away. So they would be the two things. Is there's so much free content out there, so you can pull up your chart, you can go nuts digging and searching, but if you do want support with it, then you can jump into a reading.
Yeah, and I would really, really suggest you to actually get a reading, because I'll be honest, like I did pull up my chart initially and I did read about a few things. So I had an idea where my energy type and stuff. But I would be honest, the language out there is a little intimidating and overwhelming. But
Mm,
when I had a reader, Kirsten, breaking it down to me, I think that kind of like really, really made it so simple and digestible that now I can, like when I read stuff online, it kind of makes more sense to me. It kind of like
yes,
feels more, I can understand it much better.
totally.
So
Yeah.
I think with anything out there, it's good to have your own, like I'm a big researcher.
Yeah.
It's always great and amazing, but it's equally amazing and great to have somebody support you and open the gates for you so that you
Yeah.
can have that breezy walk in the park by yourself
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
uh, Thank you so much, Kristen, for being here. I appreciate you. I love you so deeply, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. You know, I love you as well. And we always joke that you're like my sister I never had, and that we're going to meet each other in person one day. So thank you so much for having
Absolutely.
me.
Yay.